It's the actual thinking about that's causing the problem. Because
Yeah.
I mean, you could have the most upsetting day.
Yeah.
But if you just found out that you won $1 million,
Mm-hmm.
everything is going out of your mind, because now your mind shifts focus to, I won $1 million, or I'm going out with my best friend I haven't seen in 5 years. So your resiliency goes way up.
Yeah. Yes.
But it's really down to thinking. I mean, it really is. And so learning to manage our thought processes. So, and again, you have two choices: drop down into that core state by just saying, okay, these are just thoughts.
Welcome back. We are on today with my guest, Tiffani Cappello, who is back for a second time on the Too Old for This Shit podcast. I'm Angie S., the founder of angies.com. That's Angie-S.com. Link in the show notes. Where I'm a health coach, helping busy women fed up of trendy wellness bullshit look and feel younger effortlessly without Botox. To work with me, you can get in touch via the website or email me directly at hello@angie-s.com. So if you haven't yet, please share this podcast with your friends. Rate, review, subscribe to it on Apple Podcasts or follow it on Spotify. For all the other platforms, whichever way you show love is how you can support this show. The more you do that, the more it helps new listeners discover this show. It takes 2 seconds and it's completely free for you to do. And it just really helps support me doing, releasing free content week after week. So I'd really, really appreciate it if you do that. Do you want to press pause and do it now? Oh, is that me just being a bit too pushy and controlling? No? I think it's cute. Come on, do it. Do it now. Okay, I'll back off. Today with Tiffani, we talk about empowerment, overcoming negative beliefs, which also means letting go of the why did this happen to me mentality. So without further ado, let's begin. Okay, well, welcome back, Tiffani.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great.
I think we're both really, I don't know about you, but I'm definitely sweating. It's so hot today in London. And I can't put the fan on because we're doing it and recording, but I'm literally sweating. I have a natural glow.
There you go. Well, it looks great on you. So,
So in case, people haven't listened to you before, we did episode number 44 together, which was released on the 15th of June 2020, called Breaking Free from a Cult. And so our conversation went, we went quite deep, and I guess I could talk to you for hours on end. And so we decided to bring you back on today to talk about the other side of the work that you do, which is on empowerment and overcoming negative beliefs. And I think we're going to go quite deep. When we said empowerment and overcoming negative beliefs, people sometimes think, oh yeah, it's just positive thinking and affirmation. We say it's a lot more than that, and it's a lot more. And at the same time, maybe it's even simpler. I don't know. So I'm going to find out what it is that you do with that. But I really love what you had to say about it in our email exchanges, and so I can't wait to dive into this with you. I have so many questions. So before we start, and for those who haven't listened to your previous interview, please introduce yourself, where you live and what you do.
Well, my name is Tiffani Cappello, and I live in the United States in the state of Ohio. And I am a rapid transformational therapist, a hypnotherapist, an NLP practitioner, and a women's empowerment coach. So, the main core of what I do is I use hypnosis and RTT to help transform people's mindsets, because every single thing you do in life is governed by your mindset. Whether you have good relationships, whether you are successful or not in your career, whether you're happy or depressed, all of this is governed by our mindset. So it should be our top priority to transform our mindset and get it in tip-top shape.
Yeah.
So, and using hypnosis and RTT, which was, for some of you, you'll be aware and you'll know of Marissa Peer. She's quite a celebrity in the UK. So she trained in London. So that was a while back. I was trained by her in London.
I was just going to interrupt you because you're being really
Okay.
humble about work. I know you train. Like because she obviously she does the RTT, which I want you to explain in a minute what it is. But you are one of the trainers. You train the other therapists, right? So I think you're quite high up in the hierarchy in a way. I don't know how you call it, but like within the organization. And just want to explain if people haven't heard of Marissa Peers. I came across her online a couple of years back. And I mean, it's impossible to get like a one-on-one session with her unless I think you're like that famous. And she basically teaches a thing about like, I am enough, like about people understanding that they are enough. And then there's a whole lot of philosophy around it. But I just wanted to say that I did do RTT sessions. I found an RTT therapist here, and it's like kind of a hypnosis. And I really enjoyed it. It was hard, but I enjoyed it. And I remember the first time I had like my mind was silent was like the following day of doing the first session, and my mind was just like silent for the first time in a very long, I don't even remember the last time, but it was a really nice feeling, which is very hard for me to get unless I do like a 2-hour workout and then followed by meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something I know we're going to talk about, but I just wanted to give a bit of, I guess, context with this. So I have tried the RTT, and I can say like it was definitely quite powerful for me.
But the interesting thing that you said was that your mind was quiet.
Yeah, and I just want to get it back.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I teach my clients now that you really have 3 options in life. The first option is that you can continue as you have been. I mean, that is an option. And you can be caught up in the world of thought. Now, if your thoughts are positive and empowering, that might not be such a bad thing. If your thoughts are negative and defeatist and thoughts that tear you down, it can absolutely destroy your life and your relationships. Yeah. So the first, the first option is to continue on as you are. The second option is to learn to drop down from this world of thought into what I call the core state. So that is the state you were born with. In the absence of thought, when you were born into this world, you didn't worry, you didn't obsess, you didn't think angry thoughts about people. You lived entirely in the present moment. Part of that was because, your thought processes weren't that well developed, but you also hadn't been programmed to live any other way. So, Marissa teaches and I teach that innately you have self-worth when you're born. You don't have a sense that I'm not lovable. You have the sense that you deserve love. Mm-hmm. You don't think to yourself, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. No baby learning to walk says, boy, today I've fallen 6 times. It's absolutely worthless. I'm just never going to learn to walk. I mean, we don't think like that in those developmental years. Mm-hmm. We have that innate confidence, innate belief in ourselves, innate feeling of worthiness.
And it's also a lack of self-consciousness, right? Because when people are self-conscious, they're not really, let me reverse it. When like with a baby or with a dog or with a cat or with a person who is just so comfortable in their own skin, they have this thing that you can't stop staring at them, or that you enjoy their company because there's that thing. There's not all of these scriptures around in their mind and their head. They just have that. The baby doesn't care that its belly is like going over his nappies. Doesn't care at all. Yeah, he's just happy to look like a little Buddha.
Yeah, and a baby never looks down while you're changing its diaper and goes, "Oh my God,
I know
those fat rolls."
No, they tend to laugh or cry because they're hungry, or they're just laughing and they just peed on you.
So. Yeah, they're just happy because they live in this core state. And what people don't realize is, we live in that until it's programmed out of us. It's not programmed out of us. That's the wrong way to say it. We lose touch with it because we get caught up in this world of thought. So it's possible to train your mind to drop down out of that world of thought. And you actually have access to the core states at any moment, at any time. All you have to do is drop down out of the world of thought. And those three core states are love, peace, and joy. So that is an option for you, is to learn to drop down into and experience your core states. And the other option is to learn to train your mind to think empowering thoughts, because we're going to think. So if we're going to think, we can't stop thinking. It's not something we control. So if we're going to think, why not have those thoughts be empowering thoughts? So that's what I do with clients. If they come to see me, they generally aren't really interested in remaining the same and continuing to be caught up in their thought-generated reality, which is generally unpleasant. Mm-hmm. So they're usually interested in learning to reach that core state and live more, thoroughly in that state. And then especially in learning to think in an empowered way. And it's truly transformational when you switch over from those limiting beliefs over to empowering beliefs. It will make all the difference in every single area of your life. But the first thing I do with clients, especially those who come into my online program, which is called Transformed Women Academy, when people enter into that program, the first thing we do is teach you, how to come down out of that world of thought into that core state, because most people don't even realize that it's attainable, because they're believing what I call, some illusions, some core illusions. And those illusions are that I need something outside myself to experience peace. I need something to stop in my life out there. Maybe it's with my husband or a partner. Once he changes, then I can feel like I'm worth loving. I won't be able to have joy until I get to this next place in my life.
Isn't that a little bit of when we think that way, if he changes or she changes, or if that happens or stops, isn't that a little bit of victim mentality?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's one of the things I really cover in my program is the victim mentality. How do you recognize that you have the victim mentality? What are going to be the consequences if you continue to have this? Because when you have a victim mentality, you have given up control. You've given up your personal power to other people and outside circumstances. Mm-hmm. And the recent, COVID pandemic is a perfect opportunity for people to realize, no matter how much you're into The Secret and manifestation and all these things that are going around nowadays, there are circumstances in your life that you cannot control. And that's it. And if you rely on being in control, or having to be in control of everything going around you, if you believe this illusion, your chances of being happy are limited, especially if your circumstances are not the way you want them to be. Mm-hmm. Because what happens when you finally reach that goal? I told myself when I was young, once I get married, that's it. I'm going to be happy. Well, guess what? I got married and my husband wasn't perfect like I imagined that he was going to be. So now I'm not happy. Well, I know once I have children, I want a baby so bad. Okay. So once I have a baby, I'm going to be happy. Well, guess what? My first child was born with birth defects and died. That was something totally outside of my control. Yeah. And so now I'm really unhappy. Then I couldn't even get pregnant again right away. I did go on to have 7 children total. So obviously, I overshot the goal there, but, love every one of them. But the fact is that if you've given your power away to your external circumstances for you to be happy and be at peace, you're going to create a mental circumstance where you are going to have anxiety because you can't control these outside influences. So there's always going to be something out there looming that you tell yourself, well, if something happens to my husband, I won't be able to make it. If I won't be able to stand it if I don't graduate from college by this amount of time, or, we have all of these ifs that we put, all of these criteria that have to be met in order for us to be at peace. And if that's you, you're going to find it difficult to ever arrive at this state that actually resides within you at all times.
Yeah, because I think we always go. It's like, people are saying, so when is it, like we were saying about, you talk about like marriage. So, let's say you date, people say, okay, so you girlfriend, boyfriend now. Okay. And then you go, okay, so when you're getting engaged. Okay. So when you're getting married. Okay. So when you're having a baby. Okay. So when you're having a second, third, fourth. Okay. When are you having grandkids? When are you retiring? When you're buying that second home in Spain? Like there's always go, like society telling you, it's never ending. So then you may feel like it feels like almost like that unsatisfaction. But I just wondered if I could just take like a slightly different example to see if I understand what you're saying, and see if we're like if I'm sort of understanding that wavelength you're going to take us on. Because I think with the victim mentality, so I think, and it doesn't mean that you have been a victim of assault. It's just like just a mentality process, like just be anything for like why is everything happening to me? That kind of mentality. Right? So, but I think a lot of the things, even if we don't see ourselves as victims, we may be our attitude is like a victim. It's like look, the people are not looking at facts and what they have and what they've got going on, and we're all guilty of it. But part of it, I believe, is the meaning that we put on things, right? So there's a meaning of what marriage is, kids or success or our upbringing or our past or present and what we want in the future is how we interpret things. Because let's say, for example, with parenting, all parents, even if you could put like the best parents in the world, if you could define that, they still make mistakes. They'll still mess up their kids in one way or another because of, like I'm exaggerating, but like it's because of the meaning you put on what they did or said to you. It doesn't mean that it's true. You interpret it. So, for example, even to take it to like a really extreme now to like prove my point is that, let's say someone actually has, suffered like overt abuse from the parents, whether it's physical, physical abuse, let's say. Even that happening to that child hasn't done anything to deserve it. But they're going to interpret it as I am not worthy of love or I deserve to be mistreated, for example. So even though the fact is there that they are being physically abused and hits and whatnot, it still does not define who they are. So
exactly.
It still doesn't mean that they're not worthy. They're still worthy of all the love in the world. And I think it's kind of like from that really extreme example that I'm giving is to say, yeah, you may have had a really shit start, you may have had like a really bad circumstances, and there's no taking that away. There's no denying it and condoning what happened. But it's the meaning, and that's the really hard part, I think. And it's a very hard thing to do. But once you can do it, I think it can really change your life. Because if you can say, oh, wait, that was them doing things. And yeah, it is awful, and you have scars and, mentally, emotionally, and physically, but actually it does not define who you are. And I think if someone can get through that and come out the other side and understand that, I mean, wow, I'm like super impressed. But it happens. Some people can really, you go and you're like, how are they even still smiling with everything that's happened to them? And I think it shows like human resilience. And I think sometimes when we go around and we're not in a war, we're not under bombs, we're not in Syria somewhere being bombed, and we still look for things. It's like our mind can't help it. We're looking for the negative things. And it's that sabotage. And what is that all about? Like, why are we always trying to find something that's wrong,
Well, they call that the negativity bias. And it's like a protective mechanism in the brain where, the brain wants to keep us safe, and it wants to move us away from pain, because pain generally is not good for our health or well-being, and move us towards pleasure, because pleasure generally is good. So in doing that, the brain is kind of constantly scanning for danger. I don't know if you've ever, been outside and you walk by a hose, and your first response is terror because you think, oh my God, I just saw a snake, and the brain just reacts to that in a vigilant sort of way. And so, And it's good that our brain is like that. It's good that we have a brain that wants to protect us, or we wouldn't have survived as a species this long. But when you have an incident like you were just talking about, childhood trauma, when you have an instance where your own parents or your peers at school were dangerous for you, either emotionally or physically, you could end up with a brain that is very hyper vigilant. So it's always scanning the environment, picking up dangers that someone who didn't have a lot of developmental trauma wouldn't even pick up on. I mean, just to give you an example from everyday life, if you're in a relationship and that individual cheats on you, well, you'll be hard pressed in your next relationship not to notice things that other people wouldn't notice. He didn't text me. Oh my gosh, he hasn't texted me all day. What's going on? Maybe something's wrong. Maybe he met somebody else that maybe you would never have thought of if you hadn't had your mind conditioned by your previous experiences.
Absolutely.
So, and what you were talking about earlier with, childhood trauma and tragedies and experiences, people do develop a victim mindset because of what they've gone through. And I've seen quite a few people like this who come into my office and they have this attitude. I don't know if you can help me because I'm pretty much hopelessly defective. And they don't use that word, but they're thinking to themselves, I have been through so much trauma and so much pain, either in childhood or in my adult life, that I'm just so messed up, and they almost feel like, well, I'll give you a shot, but I'm not counting on much,
Yeah.
And so that is what I mean by the victim mentality. So, and what people need to come to the place of taking 100% responsibility for everything. And when I say that, it doesn't mean that, if you are a 30-year-old woman who was sexually abused by Uncle Bob for 5 years, that was not your fault.
No.
You do not take responsibility or blame for what happened to you. What you take responsibility for is your reaction, because life is filled with uncontrollable events. People we love die. I mean, it wasn't my choice, obviously, to have a child born with multiple birth defects. My first child was born with complex congenital heart disease. She only lived 15 days. I would have never volunteered for that. But I did develop after that a victim mentality of, oh my God, poor me. No one else had this happen to them. And it really dragged me down and prevented my healing for a long time. So while we can't control these events, we can control how we respond. I could have become an alcoholic after that because of the pain I was going through. So we have choices.
Or how long we carry it to, right? So, because there's the healing process, which I'm just thinking, you're saying like the woman of them being raped. I mean, for me, I can't even watch it on movies, like sexual assault. I can't read about it. It makes me so angry. I have like a very strong reaction to it. So, I don't say this lightly. What I'm about to say is that it's like, I think, like you said about, I can't even imagine in that context, actually, I can't even use that context, but let's say grief. Okay. So I remember when grief hit me quite a young age, the first year was just, I completely, lost it. But I guess at some point I had to also decide how much of it I was going to let it impact me. And obviously being that young, I didn't have that kind of thinking, but looking back is like, how long do I want to carry that? That anxiety of, the fear of someone, never coming back, someone that, that's the last time you see them, the last time you're ever gonna hug them or be able to say anything. It took me a really long time to sort of like, and I think it's how long you carry that pain for. Like same with breakup, someone breaks your heart. Yeah, you have to go through the whole, the healing process and the grief and the anger and whatnot. But at some point, it's like, how long are you going to carry it for? And how long are you going to carry it for in your next relationship? That's, I think, the place of accountability, right? The responsibility. Is that what you mean? Like almost the duration and how how you're going to put meaning to it, because just because one person did something or one event happened doesn't mean it's going to carry on again and again and again unless you keep looking for it, you know?
Well, and too, I
Almost.
don't think anybody chooses to be affected long term by any trauma.
Oh, no. But yeah.
But they just don't have the knowledge and necessarily the effective tools to figure out how to get out of that space, which is what I do, basically, helping people to get out of that space. And that's why, like, the new program I've developed and the way I move people forward in their life is from that place. It's not that they just have some beliefs, a mindset, thought processes in their mind. That's what's actually keeping them stuck. They think my circumstance in the past is what's keeping me stuck. But what's actually keeping you stuck is your thinking. Because there are people who have the most horrendous, traumatic childhoods. There's people who've been abused for years. There's people who went through Nazi concentration camps. I mean, there's not everybody, but there's people who've gone through horrible things. Now, some of those people come out of that not unscathed. I won't say anyone's unscathed, but they come out of that and they become functioning members of society. Then there are other people who come out of that with long-term effects. And if you really look at these people, a lot of what differentiates them is the way they frame the events that happen to them, what they believe about those events, especially in relationship to who they are. If I believe that my mom was an alcoholic, so if I conclude that my mom really never really stopped drinking, so that must mean that I'm not worth loving, that I don't matter, I wasn't important enough. I could conclude that.
That you are not worth quitting the drinking for.
Yeah, or I could conclude that my mom has an alcoholism problem. Depending on what I conclude will be greatly dependent on how my life is played out from that day forward. If I conclude I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy, I'm going to carry those beliefs into all my relationships. And
that's the interpretation you have on the event. And I think that is really key.
And that's what I mean about personal responsibility. But, so while I emphasize personal responsibility, it's really about not so much actions that you take as much as mindsets that you shift. So, I wish people could understand, I wish they teach it in school, that more important than anything else you do in life is that you learn to master and govern your mind.
So what would be like the first step you tell someone? So let's say you wake up and the first thing that starts playing on your mind is something that from the night before, whether it's something you watched or read or an interaction, and it's like, it's put you in a really bad mood, and then you start to spiral, and you're feeling really grumpy. What would be like, how would you say, like, someone to sort of like drop, because how do you drop out of your mind into the quiet?
Well, how I teach people is when they can understand the principle of thought, when they understand that their upset is not actually caused by the thing they're thinking about. Well, it is the thing they're thinking about, but it's not actually the circumstance they're thinking about. It's the actual thinking about that's causing their problem. I mean, you could have the most upsetting day.
Yeah.
But if you just found out that you won $1 million, everything is going out of your mind, because now your mind shifts focus to, I won $1 million, or I'm going out with my best friend I haven't seen in 5 years. So your resiliency goes way up.
Yeah. Yes.
But it's really down to thinking. I mean, it really is. And so learning to manage our thought processes. So, and again, you have two choices: drop down into that core state by just saying, okay, these are just thoughts. So like I make little reminder cards for my clients, and one of them just says, it's just thought. And they put those in their house in different places to remind themselves that it's my thinking that is causing my emotions. And then I also use what's called the core state meditation to train the mind to recognize thought processes as what's upsetting them, and to realize I have access to this core state at all times. It's not something that you can generally tell someone. They go, oh, okay, and they're never upset again. As a matter of fact, I still get upset. So we don't reach this state of perfection. It's a growth process. It's like being on a journey. So if I'm going on a journey across the United States, hopefully in a year, if I'm walking, in a year, I'm going to be closer to my destination, but I'm still on that journey. So, it's a process of training the mind. But what I like about using rapid transformational therapy and hypnosis and NLP is because we're able to access the subconscious mind and work directly with the subconscious mind, that journey can move a little quicker.
Mm-hmm.
When you do things on a conscious level, it's almost like if you're trying to fill a bowl, but above that bowl, you put a colander lined with multiple towels and you're dumping water down there, and it's just drip, drip, drip. And that bowl on the bottom represents your subconscious mind, where we really need to make an impact. Hypnosis just kind of removes the bowl, so we can pour directly into the subconscious mind. And the reason that's important is because your subconscious mind governs all of your learned behaviors. So when you drive a car, once you learn to drive, now 10 years later, you don't have to think about every minute detail of driving. You're thinking about, what am I going to make for dinner? Oh, I'm going to have lunch with my friend tomorrow. Oh, I hope my boyfriend buys me that dress. Whatever it is you're thinking about is, you can think about a lot of things because your subconscious mind is driving because it's a learned behavior. Well, unfortunately, our subconscious mind is the driver behind a lot of negative patterns as well, because it doesn't differentiate learned behavior from what's positive and necessarily negative. So if you learned that your emotions were bad, then it may continue that pattern.
So can we go into this thing with the subconscious mind? So obviously, now people listening, they don't necessarily have access to the RTT, hypnosis, and NLP, but I wanted to go into some of what you just said about the subconscious mind, because, for example, I think this is where sometimes it gets confusing, is that, so, let's say you watch something on the news, or you're having you're talking with a friend or a partner, and let's say for them with a partner. So how do you know if all of a sudden you're getting upset? Okay, something's going on, you spoke, and then you're getting upset. How do you know if it's a trigger? And so a trigger will be, I'm assuming, from the subconscious mind, from deep down, something that just reminds you, oof, it's like it's a snake, but it's on your hose. So it's a trigger versus like actually a current, something that's happening now because that person is actually being, let's say, disrespectful. So because sometimes the words from somewhere in the past, and the words that someone is currently using, that they can be the same, but the intentions are very different. So how do we know if we're being triggered, right? Versus actually there's something in front of us that we need to pay attention to. And I find that sometimes it's hard to discern. And unfortunately, that thing can actually really, I don't know how to pronounce it, smear. It can smear or present. Smear?
Yes.
Is that the word? Yeah. It can smear or present. So do you have any ideas around that? Because we're talking about the subconscious mind.
In reality, whether you're triggered by the past or the present, you're being triggered and you're developing an emotion and taking personal responsibility for that emotion and not develop. I mean, it's easy just to snap right into a victim mindset. You're making me angry. Well, actually, no. No one can actually make you angry.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's your own job, isn't it? Only we can actually upset ourselves.
Let's not be too hard on ourselves because we are human. But see, a shift in mindset right there at that point is pivotal. If you can make that shift in mindset right there and take personal responsibility for your own feelings, you can really diffuse a downward spiral, in some relationship dynamics right there. So it really starts almost with prevention. But most of, I can't remember the name of one of my favorite relationship authors. He wrote 7 Principles of Good Marriage, I think it was. But anyway, he said 90% of all disputes within a relationship involve triggers from the past.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can imagine that.
And again, this is why, personal development, mindset mastery, dealing with your beliefs needs to be your top priority, because it affects every single area of your life. And when you begin to transform that, everything else transforms. Doesn't mean you're going to get everything you want in life. Unexpected events still might happen, but the way you respond to them and react to them is going to be entirely different. It makes or breaks you in life, really.
So would you say, like, the way to, I guess, like, to handle the situation is to just sit with the emotion and just, like, give it some time? I mean, because I find, like, if I do that, I just wait, and I just usually wait, see, like, events play out, because often, like, the events play out and contradict the fear I had, for example, because that person will show me, that they are, a good person, or their intentions are good. And so sometimes it's almost like time will tell, but obviously you have to communicate. So yeah, it's a tough one.
One of the things I like to point out to people is these, I call these emotional indicators. So suddenly you're just moving throughout your day, your partner says something to you, and instantly you feel this painful emotion. That's an emotional indicator. Any painful, just uncomfortable emotion that comes up. And a lot of times people kind of brush them aside, and you do need to tune into that. Let yourself feel that in your body. Where do I feel that in my body? But then you need to ask yourself why it's there, because your brain does not send pain for no reason. I mean, if you were to walk outside today and sprain your ankle, the brain will send pain. And that pain is a message to you. Please don't walk on that ankle. We're going to make it worse, And when we have emotional pain, the brain is also sending us a message. Could you pay attention to this? So, and I tell people it's sending you one or two messages. It's sending you a message that there's something that you have not healed. Okay. And that's a great way to describe the scenario you just mentioned. Something from the past has been triggered. Instead of, now, if we take the victim mentality, now we're directing our anger. You caused this pain. No, actually, that pain originated from within you. So if it was triggered from something in the past, what is it in the past I still need to heal? So that's the first thing. The second reason you might get these emotional, these pain indicators, is because you have a belief that is harming you. So taking your emotional pain and looking at it from, okay, is it something in my past or even present that I need to heal? Or is it some belief I'm having that is toxic and limiting to me? Because just like if you have something wrong in the body, the mind brings that physical pain. If you have something wrong in the mind, you're going to have that emotional pain. It's the brain's way of saying, excuse me, could you please take a look at this? It needs to change. So, we need to be become self-aware about our emotional pain. Now, the only exception to that, I will make an exception, and it's an important one. If you've just lost a loved one, that grief is normal pain. It's not caused by a belief you have necessarily. It's not necessarily caused by something in your past. Grief is a natural pain that we all go through at one time or another, and it's just a process we have to go through. Now, you can compound that grief by developing beliefs about yourself, your future, your world that are going to intensify that grief if they're limiting and negative, for sure. But no one should ever feel like something's wrong with them because they're going through the grief process.
But actually, the grief, and again, it's not something, I'm not a bigger person enough, because I think we always say at my age, and I think anyone like listening around my age, we've gone through grief a few times. It's like, it does not get easier, but the grief, although it's a natural feeling, it actually is bound to a belief that because that person is physically not there means that they're completely gone. Whereas if we change our belief that actually they're still here, and it sounds completely I mean, it sounds like complete BS, right, when I say this, because obviously you want them to be there in person, especially if it's a partner that you lost. You need to be there physically. You need to be able to hold them and smell them. But it's that it's still bound in the belief, because you could also believe something different. You could believe that actually now they're here with you all the time. You could believe their spirit's there all the time. So it's still, in a way, bound to a belief. And also the feeling that everything is finite, that one day, bam, we're just gone and someone else could go, and that there's a fear behind it.
It's interesting that you said that, because some people listening will probably go, well, I don't believe that. That's not true. When someone's dead, they're dead, And so the interesting point that I have to make about beliefs is it's not so much, and this is going to sound weird, but it's not so much whether your belief is true. It's whether it's empowering. So sometimes, we're not sure if a belief is true. Or even if we're looking at our past thinking, here's a common belief, am I ugly? Am I a loser? Am I, and so, and our minds end up going, okay, let's weigh the evidence. Okay, so am I ugly? Well, I don't look like, Cindy. Cindy's so beautiful. Oh my God. And, I don't look like, that girl at the gym that I saw with a 6-pack. My God, I got that flab. And so, and then we're thinking, well, and maybe we weigh the evidence the other direction, but my hair is really nice. And so we end up in this mental deliberation. It's almost like you've got an inner bitch on one shoulder, and then you've got your inner life coach on the other, and they're arguing your worth between the two of them, and whoever wins for the day is how you end up feeling about yourself. And so, but the problem sometimes people have with overcoming their thoughts is that they say to themselves, well, I need to figure out which of these thoughts are true and which of these thoughts aren't. And you know what? It doesn't matter. The question should be, is this thought empowering?
Yeah.
If the answer is no, you shouldn't be thinking it. Now, obviously, we don't want to believe complete delusional things like, well, I believe that I'm Madonna, and therefore, I'm not talking about that. But it doesn't matter, if you're thinking maybe I'm ugly, it doesn't matter if that's true or not, because I don't believe in ugly people personally. So, I'm not going to have that belief, but sometimes you can't reason with your own mind and convince yourself that something's not true, but it's holding you back. So why would you want to latch onto that? If you could believe something different that would pull you forward. And it is people's beliefs. And this is something I learned from being in a religious cult. Your beliefs can destroy you.
Absolutely.
And that's why I teach these 12, CoreLife Principles, which basically principles that, they're non-religious, they're secular, they can be interpreted in different ways. So you don't have to be of a certain religious faith, or you don't have to be an atheist, but they're principles that are pretty universal. And if you can grasp them and make them part of your belief system, it's going to transform your entire life.
And what are they?
Well, the first one, and we kind of touched on this earlier, is that you are not broken. Okay. So you are not broken. That means that at the very core, at that core state of who you are, you have innate mental and emotional wellness. Because what happens as we go through life, especially if we had a lot of childhood trauma, we begin to view ourselves as broken. We begin to put labels on ourselves. I have ADHD. I have an anger problem. I have bipolar. I have, I have childhood trauma. So our perception of ourselves becomes one that we are broken. But in essence, if I could take you right now and take a thought vacuum, I've always thought it would be great to have a thought vacuum. And I stuck that thought vacuum on your head, and I just took all the thoughts out of your head. At your core state of who you are, there is nothing wrong. There's no mental and emotional problems. It's your thoughts, the way you think, that are bringing about all these problems. So the essence of who you are as an individual is not broken. And therefore, you don't need to be fixed. Okay? You need to change your thoughts. That's it. The second principle that I teach is the map is not the territory. And this is something that comes out of NLP. So, if I draw a map of London, you know that the map of London is not actually London. That's common sense. So we draw in our mind these mental maps or representations of the way life is. And that representation is not necessarily reality. So acknowledging that the way I'm perceiving my life might not actually be the way it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a very scary realization to have. But also, too, is like, oh, what if the way? I mean, I don't know if some people can relate to this, but sometimes I'm like, what if I'm completely wrong about everything? How even the times where I thought I was acting well or behaving well. What if I was actually the bad person? Or you just don't know, right? You don't know because you only have just this one view, one pair of eyes looking out, not look.
Well, and I guarantee you, both you and I both are wrong about a lot of stuff. That's what I learned being in a cult. I thought I was right about everything. I had it down. I knew the truth. I had this book that showed me, and then I found out, my God, everything I believe is destructive. Not everything, but most things. And so now, what do I do? And so now I just assume that I'm wrong about stuff. And it's such a freeing position. So, and what it does for me is, like when we get in these, the Facebook debates or whatever, oh, should we wear a mask? Should we not wear a mask? And then there's racist debates, does this organization support people? And there's all these debates that go on. I never, well, I won't say never, but I try not to come from the assumption that I have all the facts and I know everything. So every time you have all the facts is if you're actually there. Mm-hmm. And your perception is not colored by what's going on in your head. Mm-hmm. So, and it's okay it's okay to be wrong. It's okay not to know everything. It's okay not to be perfect.
Yeah.
All of that's fine. But that realization that your perception might not be accurate, you might need to shift that perception. Most people don't think like that. They just assume the way I see the world is the way the world is. And if you don't see the world my way, then you're an idiot.
Yeah, and this is something we see a lot of, and it's been around for a long time. I find that it's one of the worst traits. It's one of the worst human traits to witness. And I find it really hard to watch and to look at, to read, to listen to. I mean, there's so much I could be saying, but would be going on a serious tangent, I think. But yeah, I think seeing the world in like such a dualistic way, you're either with us or against us, or you are a friend or enemy, or this. Yeah, I find it deeply disturbing. I think it's good to have principles, but I think it's good to have some humility in realizing that you may not have all the facts, or that I may not have all the facts, and that's okay.
So we just had a bit of a technical disconnection. So we're just back in. Thank you for coming back, Tiffani. I'm not sure exactly where we left off. So could you just tell us about the 12? So you were going into the 12 CoreLife Principles.
Yes, I've gotten up to number 3. Number 3 is people do the best they can with the knowledge they have, which emphasizes the importance of beliefs, of, looking at bad beliefs producing bad behavior, good beliefs producing good behavior. Number 4 is there's a positive intention behind every behavior. Now, this is really important when we take a look at ourselves, because we often have these parts of ourselves that we like, and then we have these parts of ourselves that we don't like. So I might like the part of myself that is really faithful to work out and take care of my health. But then that part of me that, gets crabby and yells at my children when I'm tired, I don't like that part of myself, or something a little more extreme, somebody may have this part of themselves that really wants to be a good husband and father, but then they have that part of themselves that drinks too much and has gotten now 5 DUIs, and his wife is threatening to leave him, So it sounds preposterous that I would say there's a positive intention behind every behavior. So does that include, Bill's alcoholic behavior? So what I'm talking about is from the perspective of the mind. So I'm not saying every behavior is good. Obviously, in society, we'd see so many of behaviors that are very toxic and damaging. But from the perspective of the mind that's driving that behavior, the brain has a positive intention. So let's take Bill, the alcoholic, for example. So Bill, drinks. And why does Bill's mind compel him to use alcohol in the way that he does in excess? Okay, so, Bill might come to see me and say, I'm coming to see you. My wife is threatening to leave me. So take custody of the kids. I've had 5 DUIs. If I get another one, I'm going to go to prison. I lost my job because I showed up drunk. And you got this individual sitting in front of you who's absolutely devastated by the course of their life. So I've got to stop drinking. And, exploring Bill's subconscious mind, we actually discover that the reason Bill drinks is because his mind wants him to self-medicate away the pain that he's not dealt with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's one example of what the intention of the mind is driving Bill towards alcohol, because, if Bill doesn't deal with, he's not really dealt with his previous wife's suicide and the emotions surrounding that. So he medicates that pain away.
It's a survival mechanism, even though it's off. It's a survival mechanism. Yeah.
Yeah, the brain does not want to fractionate, crack up, have Bill get depressed and suicidal like his ex-wife or whatever. So drinking is a way to self-medicate. And another reason people might drink that, has a positive intention in the brain is to connect. We need connection. We are wired for connection. But if your view of yourself is inferior and you feel like you really can't connect because, you can't let yourself be vulnerable, and then you drink, now suddenly all of your introversion, your shyness, your insecurity is faded away under the influence of alcohol, and you could get out there and connect, which is a real human need, the need for connection. So the brain drives you towards that alcohol in an effort to, get you to connect with others. So it really helps people to understand when they can see that, I don't drink because I'm an asshole. My brain is driving me to drink because I have this need, this intention, this function for this behavior. So if I can fulfill that in another healthy way, then the brain is not so compelled to drive me towards that addiction any longer.
Yeah, and what you said actually is quite deep, because I think we are all, two things. One is there was this study, and there was a TED talk around it. This guy who did that research, or he had experience with it. His whole family were actually his whole family were addicts. Most of them were addicts, and so he obviously was really interested in that condition. And he realized that the one thing that people have been missing out on trying to, with addiction recovery, is actually what he found was this need for connection. And when people felt disconnected to other people, now I'm going to say to themselves as well, and maybe he said that, I don't know, but I'm just thinking out loud, that's what sort of is that disconnection, if that feel of emptiness. And I think there's something very true to that, because that's also what gets, one of the things that pulls someone into depression and, and down spiral into suicide. You're disconnected. You don't, there's many other things, more levels than that. But I think that that connection piece is very important. And I can't remember what the second bit I thought of was, but but I think, like you said, and this is why that person isn't actually bad intention. They're trying to numb something because all they crave is more love, really, for themselves or connection with others. That person's actually just wants love, and they numb whatever the feeling they have. It's easier.
You're talking about Johann Hari.
Is it?
Yeah, I think that's it. Just he's both written on addiction, being related to lack of connection as well as depression. I can't remember the title of his book. I have it probably within 10 feet. But a very, very good book, And again, it goes back to the truth that what we really want in life is to experience the core states of love, joy, and peace.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really, I think about all your behavior, positive or negative, is an attempt to arrive at that core state. So that's what we want to live in, and we manipulate our external environment in the vain hope that, we can experience these states. And it's better to not be at the mercy of that. And I'm not saying we don't need connection, we don't need people, we don't need food. We could just meditate and exist. I won't take it to that extreme. But when you understand these principles that, this is what you're after. I mean, look at, some of the movie stars that Marissa's worked with as a perfect example.
Yeah.
You meet with these people and she would say that, the shocking thing is they're not happy. They have everything. They have fame. They have public acclaim. People love them. They have all the money that they could ever want. And they're absolutely miserable because at the core of who they are, despite all these external things, they don't feel loved. They don't have peace, and they're not experiencing joy. And then you can go somewhere over in Tibet and find a small, remote mountain village and find a little woman, who's just spent her whole life in the rice paddies and tending to her children, who's filled with joy, love, and peace.
It's all about simplicity, I think all the extra fluff, the, achievements, they're great, and you can create a lot of change with a lot of money and all of that, I believe in. But I also think that simplicity, food, having food with people you love around you, that's something when you live on your own, like you really miss that. That is like, in simple lives, you're outside. Yeah, I mean,
and that's the
I
one
think when people really struggle, they don't actually really complain as much. They're more happy because there's this piece of like, they understand what's worth complaining about and what isn't. And I mean, yeah.
Well, and really, I mean, when your internal environment, when your mental process, your thoughts are empowering, you will, and not entirely, you don't have control over everything. We know that from, COVID, but you will do so much, in your external environment to create circumstances that are going to make it easier for you. If you believe that you are worthy of love, that you deserve a good relationship, you're probably not going to pick an abusive partner, So it's your beliefs that are driving you towards making the decisions and the choices that you make. And,
yes.
Getting serious about analyzing your beliefs, whether they're limiting you or empowering you, it should be a top priority in everyone's life. I emphasize this a lot, but it's so very important because you don't want to get to the end of your life. And most people just don't have this awareness, but getting to the end of your life and realizing that, the only thing that held me back was my own mind.
Yeah, with myself. That's what I got. I mean, I don't mind you saying it, several times. I think when I first heard you say beliefs has consequences, I was like, it stuck with me. I was like, that is it's simple, but it's so profound. So which CoreLife principle did we get to? Was that number 5?
No, number 5 is thoughts think themselves. So they
do get carried away with themselves 100%.
Yeah, you actually don't have a whole lot of control in a thought entering your mind. So a lot of times people obsess over, I don't want to think that way. So it's not so much about trying not to think in a certain way as just thinking to yourself, it's just thought. These are just thoughts. They cannot harm me. I mean, if you were watching a movie per se, and in that movie, someone was breaking in and stealing. It was a very scary movie. Okay. The minute you shut off that movie, you don't think that sometimes you get lost in the movie and, you have all those hormones surging of fear, but you shut off the movie and you go wash your dishes. You're not sitting around worried that someone's in your house because it was just a movie.
Yeah.
You know that. So when you learn to think of your thoughts that way too, these are just thoughts. They don't necessarily represent reality. They do pop into your head, no one wakes up in the morning and goes, gee, today is a good day for a mind fuck. What kind of negative thoughts can I think? So that by the end of the day, I don't even want to get out of bed. Yeah. Nobody wakes up like that. They just sort of happen to us. So it's what we believe about not the existence of our thoughts as well as the individualized thoughts.
I'm just going to take a quote here from Byron Katie to sort of like, kind of like almost like portray what you just like, because kind of in the same way of what you said, but I think I wonder if maybe like, sometimes you hear in a different way is an unquestioned mind is the only suffering.
Well, I like that.
Right? So, because like you're saying, belief has consequence, and if you don't question your beliefs, which is what, you spoke about last time and also again today, it's true. It's like, there's some, what's the next core principle? So that we did 5. What's number 6?
You are guided and directed.
Yes.
And this is where I will lose touch with a few people who don't believe that. And that's okay. I mean, you don't have to, no one is twisting your arm to believe these CoreLife principles. It has made a difference for my clients when they believe they're not just wandering aimlessly through the universe. And I have felt this guidance and direction. I don't put a name on it. I don't necessarily call it God, in my life. So whether you want to believe that you're guided and directed by your own intuitive wisdom, or you're guided and directed by something you call God, that's really entirely up to you. But that principle eliminates quite a bit of anxiety in life, to just believe, that I'm not living here aimlessly. The things like Ed Milet says, it's not happening to you. Mm-hmm. It's happening for you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That could be a tough pill to swallow if you've had a lot of childhood trauma, but the way I choose to frame my own negative childhood experiences is that it has made me who I am today.
Yeah.
It's made me who I am today. I wouldn't be on this podcast saying these things if I hadn't been in a religious cult. Because that's where I essentially learned the highly damaging consequences that beliefs have. That's where I became interested in exploring beliefs, when I realized my own were creating a life of anxiety and depression.
Yes.
So number 7 is there's a solution to every problem. Now, people that don't believe this, often, really buy into that victim mentality. There's just no answer to my problem. So I'm not saying that, you have control over every circumstance. Like, maybe you lost your job from the pandemic. So no, you can't maybe get that job back, but there's always a solution. When you believe there's always a solution, and as simple as this sounds, you keep looking for one until you find it. If you believe that there is no solution, that solution could walk right by you and you're going to miss it because your eyes are on the problem. Actually,
that's almost like the difference between life and death or quality of life, because from someone in the family, they had a lot of health issues, and at the time doctors were like, it's in your head. Anyway, it was very heavy physical symptom, and it was debilitating really. But because that person did not lose that fight of getting answers, eventually, and I want to say close to 15 years, maybe 20, even I don't know, definitely 15 years of going from one specialist to the other, finally found someone who knew what it was and helped that, and help that person. And if that person didn't have, like you said, there's no solution, they never have gone out and gone on a search and fought for it. But because the person was like, there has to be a solution, like the pain is too great to not do anything about it, And so I think that's just one example, but it could be obviously applied to many other things. But that is a really good analogy in a way to exemplify that, because there is physical pain, and everyone was saying no, and then she found it, and now it's actually quite a recognized a condition. So, but back then it wasn't, and so that was obviously a struggle. So you cannot, I guess, if you are looking for solutions, you'll get closer to it than if you didn't,
Well, and I learned this lesson myself from my uncle. I call him Uncle Skeeter. His name is Gary. But, he had, of course, chronic, incurable, and I use that word lightly, rheumatoid arthritis and Bell's palsy. And I think he was even walking with a walker in his 50s. But, he just didn't come from that approach of, okay, this is the way I am. I'm just going to deteriorate. I'm going to die young. And he met a woman who started having him do yoga. He changed to a raw food type of diet, cleansed his body, and he worked really hard on his mindset and his spirituality. And then a few years later, this man is running and walking 10 miles a day. Ditch the walker. So this is why, so when I came down with chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME, in the UK, I had this man as my example. And so, people would say to me, we have to accept that you have, after a year it took to get diagnosed, you have to accept that you have this condition. It's probably not curable. It's going to morph into an autoimmune disease. This is what I was told, which was the understanding at the time. You're just probably not going to get better. And I just had my uncle kind of in the back of my mind. I'm thinking, well, why not? I saw that there was a solution to illnesses labeled as incurable. I saw a lady I knew in the community who had stage 4 terminal cancer, who reversed it. And I'm not saying that, just believing that you're going to get better.
No, but it's a mixture of things, right? It's like, you have to believe, and then you can apply the lifestyle change, right? And I guess I would be amiss if I didn't sort of have put in a little comment, because I don't want, I guess, for listeners to have the wrong ideas, that because I do health coaching. So for some people, it would be that route that he chose. But for some other people, it would have to be, more like wholesome food, more like the staple diet, and meats and vegetables, cooked and stuff like that, because of the different genetic mapping, So, but it's finding, it's that search, isn't it? It's that search for a solution. So for some people, it would be vegan or other things, and for other people, it will be a different style. And so it's that not giving up.
Well, that's interesting you mentioned diet, because I started out thinking that my uncle's diet would work for me, and he's no longer a raw vegan. There are too many raw vegans left because a lot of them got sick, unfortunately. And it didn't work for me. I ended up doing more of what's called a specific carbohydrate diet, or paleo gap.
Yeah.
Names for it, because of that genetic difference. So now, if I had assumed that, because this is where mindset comes to play, so I tried the diet my uncle, got so much help from, and then it doesn't work for me. Now I could have made the assumption, then see, there's just no solution. This is how I'm going to live.
Yeah.
But I just kept looking. Okay, so that diet didn't work. I'm going to try another, and it got discouraging. I mean, it's like, if you're continually dating abusive men, you begin to lose faith in your ability to make good choices. So I began to struggle to keep my head above water when it came to believing that I was going to find these solutions.
Yeah.
And not that everybody, some people do die of disease. So saying there's a solution to every problem doesn't mean the outcome is always going to be, exactly what
No.
The solution isn't always necessarily what we think. My first daughter died. So is there a solution to that? You couldn't bring her back. But there's a solution to how I view that, and how, I spend the rest of my life in a relationship to the fact that I lost a child.
And number 8, what's number 8?
You can do anything that anyone else can do.
True.
Now, obviously,
I'm never going to be like an NBA player. I'm not.
Okay, so
I don't want to.
We can't fall into the cognitive distortion of black and white thinking,
Yeah.
But in general, equally matched. I could say to myself, boy, I would love to start my own podcast. Oh, but I can't do that. Angie's so talented and skilled. And, I say to myself, I can do a podcast. What's different? If Angie has skills I don't have, I can obtain those skills. If she knows things I don't.
You can't, because I'm doing some workshops. They're almost ready. I'm going to be teaching people, showing people how to do it.
Well, exactly. And if I come at life with the assumption that other people are inherently better or smarter, then I'm not going to accomplish much in life. So I miss out on my goals, my dreams, my potential, because I fail to believe that I can accomplish the same things other people accomplish. I'm not trying to be, I can't be an MMA fighter and fight men. I mean, there's biological
exactly.
limitations. But as far as someone like me, there is no reason that I can't learn and do what other people can learn and do.
And what's number 9?
Number 9 is there is no such thing as failure, only feedback.
Number 10?
You always have a choice. And that is something that draws us out of that victim mindset. You always have a choice in how you think and in how you behave.
Yes. Even sometimes it feels like it was an impulse reaction, but you can actually learn to get in more definitely take a step back and learn to control it a bit more. What's number 11?
I love this one. It's vulnerability is the key that unlocks connection. This is really flies in the face of a lot of cultural attitudes we have of the emotional.
So that again, it's a what?
The principle itself is vulnerability is the key that unlocks connection, but that really flies in the face of cultural attitudes, especially for men, I think, and even now more so for women than in previous generations. But, if I show emotion, if I cry, if I have a bad day, or if I tell people my struggles, I'm weak, I'm mental, something's wrong with me. But really, we're really no different from one another, no matter what you struggle with, except those people that, determine that their struggles indicate that they're broken and they're hopelessly defective. So, if we come from the principles kind of work together. So if you believe that you're not broken, if you believe you don't need to be fixed, it gives you a lot more power in your life to express your authentic true self, to be free to be vulnerable with another person. Because we're not constantly thinking to ourselves, gosh, if Steve figures out who I really am, if he sees my weakness, he's going to exploit me. He's going to not like me because, I'm kind of a fraud. People can't know the real me because they'll reject me. But what you do is you close the door to any true connection in your life. You're not going to be able to connect with anybody that you withhold your true self from.
But that's not easy, right? I mean, I guess it's also maybe like a timing thing. Like, you can't do that maybe like on the first thing. I mean, depending on the interaction, but I mean, you can't just dump all your problems or dump all your, it's a bit like you kind of have to put it together a little bit on the first few dates and show, that it's like when you go for a job interview and you have a probation afterwards in a way. It sounds cool, but I guess because then you build that connection or you build something a little bit, and then it allows a little bit for like showing, the sides of you that, may not have been come up earlier, or that you may be a bit more embarrassed about, or the more emotional side of you, right? So that sort of comes up.
But realistically, you shouldn't be embarrassed about anything.
Yeah.
I tend to be like extremely vulnerable person. So I can meet a total stranger and tell them the worst thing I've ever done in my life and how I struggle with this, that, or the other. And because I don't experience any shame over it, because I don't look at these things as failures and things that make me broken and evil and, so I have little trouble being my authentic and vulnerable self. Now there is, a caveat there in relationships that, like I can, when I'm not dating now, I have a boyfriend, but, when I was out there dating and meeting people, I went into a dating situation with this attitude. I don't give a flying fuck whether you like me or not.
Yeah, true.
I told the guy that because he started to cut into me and criticize me because he didn't think I was educated enough for his taste. And I said, I don't care, because your opinion of me doesn't even matter to me. You see, that's where you're thinking that your words are wounding me, but I don't care.
Yeah. But especially when you don't know someone, it's like the first, some people will be terribly offended by that, but that's a choice, isn't it? Like, I think also if a stranger calls me name and this happened, I don't really give a shit. I mean, it's not nice to hear, you don't want to hear, but it's like, yeah, oh, they're trying to make you sound small.
Yeah, and it can't harm you unless you choose to accept and receive it.
Yeah.
So that's why I have less problem with vulnerability. And I'm not perfect at it. I mean, there are things in my current relationship, that I might be, I want to talk to my boyfriend about something, but I'm a little nervous. Maybe it won't work out the way I want it to work out. Or, you think like that. I mean, when it comes to being vulnerability in terms of safety, now that's an entirely different thing. You're entering into a new relationship. You cannot just, freely trust an individual. Now, I can trust them with some information, maybe like, oh, I ended up divorced or what, I was in a cult. I mean, I don't have any shame about any of these things, but I'm not going to obviously, meet someone in a dark alley for a first date. So that there's security needed there, that's not what I mean by vulnerability, because trust takes time to build. It's not, I mean, at some point you make a choice to trust an individual. It's always a choice, but trust is something that, over time is earned.
For sure.
It's demonstrated by kind, compassionate behavior of one another individual towards you. And then you're like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. I think like you want the trust to build. Like, I feel like it's like, relationships kind of like, you have like ups and downs, but it has to move forward in a way. Like you have to that feeling. And I think for me, it's like the more I get to know that person, the more I trust them. I was not mistrusting them, but I didn't know really what they were about. You need time to know if they're being genuine and this really is what you're seeing, because I think a lot of us, men or women or non-binary, humans, I say humans, any humans would have had experience of being, fooled, and you feel like you've been conned, and that kind of stuff. So naturally you learn and as you qualify people a bit longer. But effectively that trust, so you don't mistrust them, but you sort of get to trust who they are. And I find like the more, if you're with a good person, someone who's got good intentions, I'd say, that trust builds, and you feel like the more you get to know them, the more you trust them, I feel.
Yeah, it's difficult to trust.
It blossoms. Yeah. You
can't really trust someone until you get to know them. But if the first time you expressed, a vulnerable emotion to a potential partner and they looked at you and went, boy, you're sure weak and stupid, I mean, you're just not going to do it again. So you couldn't even be in that relationship, really. The problem is people stay in that relationship and shut down who they really are. And that shouldn't be the way it is. But the last CoreLife principle is the meaning of the communication is the response you get. And this comes out of the world of NLP, as do other.
Can you say that again? The meaning of communication is the response you get?
Yeah, the meaning of your communication is the response you get. Now, here's the meaning of that.
Yeah, what does that mean?
So me and you are communicating, and I say something and you misunderstand me completely and think I'm talking about something else. The true meaning of what I communicated to you is indicated and revealed by the response I get. So apparently I didn't communicate in such a way that you actually understood what I said. So the responsibility of communicating is on the communicator. So, if I'm giving a speech, if I'm in a relationship, I'm having a discussion, it's my responsibility to get my point across and not make assumptions about the other person because they're not understanding me, not mind read and assume, that they are getting what I'm saying, not assume that they are thinking in the same way that I'm thinking. So it's basically, about relationships. So it's not, some people, we all know, there are people we could try to communicate with. Doesn't matter what we say, they're not going to get it.
So because at first I misunderstood. I'm not sure if I understood or not. So because it sounded, okay, what I heard was that basically let's say if you say something to me and I misunderstand it, let's say you say A to me and I hear B, what you really meant was B, not A. But you're not saying that, right?
I meant A, but the meaning is kind of something that is translated by not what it comes out of my mouth, but how it travels into your ear.
Yeah, so it's like the misinterpretation to B, even though the original thing that you meant to say was A.
So what it really does is put the responsibility on me to communicate in a way that you understand.
Yeah.
So it goes back to kind of, pairs up with that belief that we need to listen to understand. So if I say something and you clearly don't get it, what I need to do is recommunicate. Recommunicate it. Like, and this happened earlier in our conversation where I mentioned, a certain issue and you questioned me on it to get clarity. Some people won't get clarity there, but you can clearly see by the way they are reacting that they misinterpreted what you said. And now you need to go back and rephrase that, so it's an understanding that puts that responsibility for communication on you. So now you are in control. You are, you have the power. You're not a victim. You're not blaming the other person. Well, God, you're such an idiot. That's not what you know what I mean? You're just saying, okay, let me rephrase that. So
that's actually the quality of a good leader as well, is to, like, people didn't understand. It's because you need to, like, explain differently. If your team isn't delivering the work that you expect it to, it's probably because you didn't explain it properly, or you're a bit too cryptic, or you need to explain it differently. And I think, that's definitely.
Well, and the last two CoreLife principles are just basically, about relationships, because our relationships are such an important part of our lives. I mean, if all your relationships are toxic, it's going to be really difficult to move forward in life. So sometimes we just have to remove toxic people from our lives, because there is that segment of the population that is not going to be willing to listen to you, to understand you. And you're just, and then their behavior is abusive. There's no reason to tolerate that. No, but for the rest of us, who have compassion and empathy and a desire to work at our relationships, these two principles are really key to having effective, meaningful relationships.
And so just before we move on, is those 12 core life principles, is that something that you put together with a mixture of your own thoughts and other people's thoughts? Or is this from or where does that 12 core life principle, where is it from? Is it from you?
Well, they're an intermingling of principles that I found that serve as a good guiding foundation for life. And I won't, I didn't necessarily originate all of them. Some of them came directly out of the presuppositions of NLP.
Yeah. So it's a curated list of your own thoughts and external resources as well, like from NLP, for example. Okay, yeah. So let's say you've had like a trigger, you misbehaved, whether it's like with your partner or colleagues or whatever, like you just had like a bit of an outburst. And then afterwards you feel, you may feel guilt or shame for acting out, okay, for something that was not really any reasons to act out on. How do you let go of that guilt and shame after acting out? Because that guilt and shame, the reason why I'm asking, is that it can kind of almost like destroys that dynamic you have with the person if you keep feeling guilty and shame, because then you can't really be yourself and you feel guilty and you're walking on eggshells and you're not sure, and the other person doesn't know why you're walking on eggshells. How do you get rid of that guilt and shame?
Well, you brought up something interesting. One of the unique aspects of the CoreLife principles is that I teach people to do what's called a CoreLife walk. You're not actually walking. You don't have to. You can. But to walk themselves through all 12 of these principles with their issue in mind. So let's say you've had an altercation with your partner and you now have a lot of guilt and shame because you behaved poorly. And you're thinking to yourself, God, I'm such an idiot. Why do I always
and you think you ruined it and you burst the bubble. And
I'm such an idiot. I've done this in every relationship. Now I'm doing it again. And so you look at the first principle, you are not broken. Okay, so innately, I know that I have perfect mental and emotional health, perfect wellness. So the problem is not that there's something wrong with me. The problem is not I'm an idiot. The problem is not that I'm a jerk. So, because I'm not broken, I don't need to be fixed. It's my thoughts. And then you look at the second one,
but you may have done something stupid. So you may have you have a behavior in your character. So you've had a bad behavior, but it does not make you a bad person. Is that what you're saying?
Right, right. So it's not you essentially at your core who's broken.
No, it's just a bad
Yeah.
behavior. Yeah.
Now that removes a lot of that shame right there. But then you read, the map is not the territory. My perceptions aren't always my reality. So the way I saw the situation with my partner, the way I interpreted it, the mental map I made is what caused me to react this way. So you can do a little bit of self-evaluation there. What was wrong with the way I was perceived as. People do the best they can with the knowledge they have. That's number 3. Okay. So there's something missing in the knowledge I have about how to govern myself, how to govern my speech, my behavior, and usually it all flows back to my beliefs and thought processes. But that does a lot. There's a positive intention behind every behavior. What was I really trying to accomplish? Why did my mind cause me to have such anger? That really releases you from a lot of that shame. So just those first 4, thoughts think themselves. So, okay, I was having these thoughts about my partner. It caused me to explode in rage. It's not, it's, you didn't manage those thoughts. You are guided and directed. Okay. So I want to fix this situation and I need guidance. I need direction in order to figure out how to ameliorate the chaos or the damage that I've done. And trusting that guidance and direction is going to arrive to you is a lot different than sitting there feeling hopeless and telling yourself that you've ruined it forever. It's all lost. There's a solution to every problem. Okay, so what is the solution to this anger issue I have, to this relationship rift I've caused? So then you become not problem focused, you become solution focused. Instead of sitting around saying, I'm such an idiot, I'm such a loser, I ruined my relationship, he's probably going to leave me. You're looking at, okay, how can I fix this? So you can do anything anyone can do. Okay, well, I know that Stephanie overcame her anger issues, and so I can do it too. If anyone else has figured out how to fix a relationship problem, has figured out how to manage their anger, if anybody else on the face of the earth has been able to get their mindset in order, then I can do that. Why not? Because I'm not broken. I'm not inherently worthless. There's no such thing as failure, only feedback. Okay, so I failed, if I want to use that term. So something went wrong in my relationship today. So I could sit around and think, I am such a failure. I could say, okay, my behavior produced this result. I don't like this result. It wasn't conducive to, our relationship going well. So I don't like this result. And now, the feedback I got wasn't good. So I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to change my behavior. I'm going to do things differently next time so I can get a different result, which, if you're in a relationship, it's usually I would like to foster connection and not separation between us. The next one, number 10, you have choices. Okay, so I'm not powerless. I'm not a victim in this situation. I have choices on how I proceed in the future. I had a choice when I chose to behave that way. I'm not, a victim of my own anger. I'm going to take personal responsibility, and I'm going to learn from this, and I'm going to do what's right in the future. Vulnerability is the key that unlocks connection, number 11. Okay, so I'm going to go to my partner, and I'm going to just express to them what I've learned from this situation, how I failed them, how I'm really sorry for what I've done. And then the meaning of your communication is in the response you get. What I was trying to communicate to my partner was that I was feeling lonely and hurt by the fact that he was, chose to go out with the buddies instead of spend the evening with me. I conveyed that in such a way that now I wounded him as well. So even though I didn't communicate properly, so now I'm going to take responsibility and communicate my needs and feelings in such a way that's understandable to my partner. So you can see how walking through these can take a problem that seemed absolutely horrendous in the beginning and straighten that out by the time you come out the other end, so that now if you adopt these principles in that specific circumstance, you come out on the other end no longer spiraling downward into mind fog.
Yeah, and I think like, I think one of the things that you said at the beginning of this recording, which, let me see if here, and something that you emailed as well, is the absence of thoughts. And this is like something that, I've been, I think it's one of the solutions in life, either way, like, whether it's like in conflict and stuff, it's just like because thoughts is what, like down spirals and, like you're saying, like, the mind fuck and, all of that stuff. And I think if we can just remove thoughts around that, after you've resolved the conflict and you've apologized and whatnot, is to remove all these thoughts, because these thoughts, like, when you feel guilty, you're like, oh my God, then this is going to happen. And then this, and then I've ruined it, blah, blah, blah. And it goes into this like crazy chitter chatter in your head. And realizing that thoughts, that's all they are. They're just like little gremlins, and all these crazy future movies you make in your mind, are not real. They're just like, but they just make you emotionally, they affect you emotionally. And it's about letting it go. And I think like, I wish I could sort of almost like, give the listeners and myself, like, here's how you empty your mind. Here's how you, just like simply, I feel like sometimes just the simplest things, but it's not easy to do.
And it's really about training yourself to...
Because when you empty your mind, your heart, I feel like when I empty my mind, my heart opens again, and I'm back in the beautiful feeling of, liking someone and all these feelings that come with it, right? So, but if the mind gets in the way, it's like, it's annoying. It's just like, it puts a shadow on it, and it's just clearing that mind. All of a sudden you feel lighter.
Yeah. And then, like I said earlier, you have the choice just to drift back into that present moment core state of love, joy, and peace.
Yeah.
But sometimes you do need to sit down and take a look at your thinking and shift it from shift it to empowering.
Yeah, I think you have to go through that thing of like, you go through your thing and figure out what brought you to that place in the first place, right? So once you've gone through these steps, it's like, but then you have to, like, I feel like, like you were saying about emptying your mind, like, having no thoughts. And because I guess like what we're saying about your heart is open, it's probably like what you were saying earlier about that core state of peace, love, and joy, right? So that's the place you want to go back to effectively.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is an amazing place to be in. And I think, it's just...
Well, and the thing is, we believe that we don't actually possess that unless we change a bunch of external things. And it's just not true. I mean, if you look at other people, which goes back to, you can do anything anyone else can do. If you look at other people who are in a situation that you're in, they're not unhappy in that situation. You are. What's the difference? It's the way you are framing, thinking about that situation.
Yeah.
You see this all the time. Of people, one person lives in your neighborhood and they think this is a great neighborhood to be in. And another person is frustrated because they don't live in the neighborhood down the street where the houses are more expensive. And, one person is content at a certain financial level, and another
of
person...
course, yeah.
And it's not the financial level. It's not the house you live in. It's not the car you drive. It's not your husband or wife. It's not, it's you. You are personally responsible for your own feelings.
Yeah.
And the smart people really get that in their mind. And it doesn't mean that shitty circumstances aren't going on around him. If your husband's cheating on you, you're not going to go, yay. But that devastates you so that you're completely incapable of having another relationship for the rest of your life, or whether you rise above that empowered, is directly proportional to how you think about the situation and yourself and your future.
Yeah, and that creates quite a bit of inner work. It's not an easy thing to do. I want to round up, Tiffani. Thank you for your time today and your insights and conversation. And, as you've already been here before, I already asked you the finishing thoughts, the 2 questions that I always ask all my guests. So I wanted to change the questions for your second time around. And so the first one is, if you could sort of briefly say, what would be the 3 things that could be helpful for someone that has low self-esteem? Like, what would you tell them?
Well, first they need to realize they're not broken. That the issue with self-esteem has nothing to do with who they actually are, because they have an inherent worth and value as they are. They were born into this world. And I would explain to them, what they were born into, their birthright as a human being. And a lot of times, people begin to develop low self-esteem because they're either told that they're not worthy, they're not enough, they're not lovable, or they come to believe that based on life circumstances. Second thing is to just separate out for them, how their mind was programmed to begin with. And then the third thing is to teach them techniques and tools to learn to empower themselves with new ways of thinking.
And so the second question is, now I don't know if it's a good question or not, actually, to be quite honest. I was trying to figure out another question to ask.
It's never a bad question.
It's a finishing thought. But anyway, so you're very kind. But okay, so is confidence a thing, or is the way to a healthy self-esteem love, joy, and peace? So is confidence a thing, or is the way to a healthy self-esteem the core state that you mentioned, like love, joy, and peace?
Well, I think the core state is a foundation. And then we can build empowering beliefs that, on top of that. But as long as you believe that your worth, your value, your happiness, your peace come from outside of yourself, then you're not going to have a lot of confidence. It's always going to be dependent on the behaviors of others. You've given away your power and control to the outside world.
Yes. Are you saying that, like, once you're like in that state of love, joy, and peace, I guess it's sort of the rest comes with it, like you build positive thinking around yourself?
Well, it's not possible to maintain that state all the time. But just having the understanding that it's not coming from outside of ourselves. That is freedom right there, because now you're no longer looking and saying, well, when I get from point A to point C, then I'm going to be happy. Because I guarantee you, when you get to point C, the negativity bias of your mind is going to point out something else that you should be unhappy about. And then you say, well, when I get to from C to point F, then I'm going to be happy.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter. You can amass all the stuff, material success and external success as you want, and it doesn't mean. I mean, look at what's her name, was it Kate Spade? She still committed suicide. She was one of the. I mean, I didn't like her design. I never bought her design, but she was one of the highest, most successful designer of her day, I guess. I think, or she was she was doing really well, and she still committed suicide. So yeah, I think we all know, like, those external things don't. It has to come from somewhere else. But I guess, I guess what I was trying to find out is, like, is confidence really a thing? Or I don't actually really know what I was trying to ask, but I understand what you mean. Like, it has to come from within.
It's a mindset. Confidence is a mindset, really.
Yeah.
You can be confident in one area and not in another area.
True.
And confidence is really built from facing fears and overcoming them, and whether or not you're willing to do that has a lot to do with how you think.
True.
You're not going to be confident in an area, in something. I mean, you're going to have some confidence. But, if I was asked tomorrow to give a speech to 300,000 people on TV or 3,000 people at a seminar, I'm not going to be 100% confident that I'm going to knock it out of the ballpark as my first speech,
Yeah, it comes with practice, isn't it? It comes with practice, confidence. You're right.
Yeah, and you have to, confidence is gained, and sometimes you may have confidence in one area because you have the experience of facing circumstances and overcoming. Well, I know I've overcome this, I've overcome this, I've overcome this, so I can therefore learn this new skill, rise to this challenge, overcome this obstacle. I know that because I have a history of doing that. And when you don't have a history of doing that, but you have a defeatist attitude, you're going to have to work on that mindset first. So the next time when this challenge comes along, instead of going and hiding from that challenge, you're now willing to say, okay, I'm going to face this fear. I'm going to go do it. And for some people, it's something like giving a major speech. And other people, it's just like, I'm going to confront my husband about his unloving behavior. That can be really scary. It's not always something big.
No, absolutely. This was absolutely wonderful, Tiffani. Thank you so much. Can you please tell us where people can find you?
Okay, well, you can find information about my program at transformedwomenacademy.com. I'm also on Facebook, Tiffani Cappello. I have a women's group there, Transformed Women. If you're interested in learning about coming out of a cult and fundamentalism, I have former fundamentalists Facebook group as well. Mm-hmm. And I have my regular website, which is just tiffanicappello.com.
Okay, perfect. I'll put all of these in the show notes. So thank you so much, Tiffani. This was a real pleasure to have you back on. Thank you so much for all your time and insights. And
my pleasure as well. It was just very enjoyable once again.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay. Well, bye, Tiffani.
Bye-bye.
And that's our episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to rate, review, share it, subscribe it on iTunes, follow it on Spotify or whichever platform you listen from. However you show love is how you can support this show. Drop me your questions or suggestions for future episodes via the website at angie-s.com or come and find me on Instagram. I have 2 accounts. One is at Tool for This Shit Podcast and at Health Expert Angie. Link in the show notes. See you next week. And until then.
Using health inappropriately.